Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of The Block Sauce, your weekly web show that serves up the juiciest discussions and sometimes arguments in the world of Web3. I'm your host and ReNFT ambassador, Jim Kieran, and thank you for joining us. Today we have an excellent panel that is just going to hopefully blow your mind. I say that because we have somebody new. That's right, we got somebody new joining us from, I believe they said they were with the ETH Lizards. Got a lizard in here, so yeah, let's just get this show on the road.
Hate to break the news to you, Jink, but you got 2 lizards.
I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure you're outnumbered. Yeah, ETH Lizards are taking over here.
Plan.
There we go. Now they can see it here, you guys. What's up, sauce enthusiasts? We're back with another episode this week, and as you can tell, we have a new face joining us in the audience. Everybody say hi to Annie. Hi, Annie. If I'm saying that wrong, please tell me.
No, you nailed it, man. Absolutely. Glad to be here.
Oh, man. How are you guys doing? Everybody should be familiar with Dub. He doesn't need an intro.
Appreciate it. No, stoked to be here. Also, fresh off joining actually the ETH Lizards and hosting their accounts, streaming on my streams every
Steal
day,
it.
Monday
No,
through
go.
Friday.
No, like go for it. First sponsored content creator from the ETH Lizards. So technically, we have 2 ETH Lizards with us. Good point. So
Yeah, yeah, and we're going to war this weekend on Metalcore, and we have like a Guild War activation, and I'll be leading our army into glory. So I'm really looking
hang
forward
on,
to it.
hang on. So I know that Metalcore said they're gonna have like a little AMA or something to kind of discuss that. You want to shed some light on that real quick, because I'm looking for a game to play this weekend, and it sounds like ETH Lizards might need some backup.
Yeah, we do.
100%.
Yeah, it's going to be. I don't know exactly the details myself. Actually, I just know it's a guild war inside Metalcore, and what I know that means is it's just utter domination by me and my friends across. We'll be taking on YGG, some
Ooh.
other DAOs. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I got my lasers specifically targeted at YGG. We've been at war in the metaverse for a long time.
Okay, Dub, count me in. I want to be there. I missed
Love it.
last weekend's test, but I was there the weekend before. Had a blast. Looking forward to this weekend for sure. Annie, are you going to be playing in it too?
100% I will be there. So yeah, I'm OG metalcore. I was in the early days as they were
Oh
launching
hell yeah!
Mhm.
with their beta access, and 100%, man. The mechs are absolutely lit. And as far as I know, this Guild War structure is going to be really focused around just like mass mayhem. Go out and just get as many kills as you absolutely can in whatever the time window is. It's open sign up, so as Dub mentioned, you don't have to be an ETH Lizard, although certainly we'd love to have you join our community. But if you want to just jump in with us, we're absolutely recruiting for the Metalcore weekends. As you mentioned, we got YGG. I know Merit Circle is going to be there. Avocado is going to be there. There's a handful of other good groups. So I think it's an eight organization matchup. I don't know how they're going to structure it, other than they've said like you got to get most kills and overall participation for each group. So it should be a lot of fun. Metalcore is definitely one of those games. You get 50 people in there rocking on one of those maps, and it's wild.
It's chaos.
Well, that's great. You guys got to count me in for the ETH Lizards then. I want to help you guys dominate. I was also there for the early days. I've been an infantry holder since the mint. So really looking forward to it. I got my first mech. I got my little trainer mech ready to go. They said that progress wasn't resetting during these playtests, so it should still be there. I'll hop in and we'll just start killing stuff. So we got this.
I love it. Looking
Nice.
forward to it.
Now that we're past the preliminary shilling, Jorge's not here, so somebody's got to do it, right? We can go ahead and jump into today's topics. Again, apologies everybody that we're starting a little late. We had some last minute shuffles. Thank you so much, Annie, for being able to fill in at the drop of a dime. This was
I got you,
it's
man. Yeah.
amazing. So obviously if you don't already know this, you're either living under a rock or not on Twitter. Tongue tied today. Zynga is now introducing their first Web3 game. We have Sugartown. I've looked at it. The art actually looks really dope, but I'm going to tell you right now, my history with Zynga was Facebook games, and that era of gaming has kind of like come and gone. That was like
Oh, really? You don't look back at that and being like, dude, Mafia War?
Oh, dude, Mafia War is my jam, but it's not
Okay,
something I play now.
that's Sugartown. They specifically are quoted for saying that they're remaking Mafia War in a different feel and vibe, and that's what Sugartown is. Like,
But let's look at the era those games they came out though. That was the era when I was like playing games with my family. Like I was playing Farmville with my mom and dad, right? I was in high school. I didn't have a job. I wasn't able to just go buy games. Now I have a whole different lifestyle. Is this something you guys think would accommodate a more?
Well, we got to onboard grandma
gamer?
into Web3. She still wants to play, man. Like,
What do you think,
gamers,
Annie?
dude.
No, Annie's just sitting off to the side. I want his opinions. What do you think? Did you
So-
play Farmville?
I did. I'm OG Farmville player too, man. That was, God, what was that? 15 years ago or
Right.
something. It feels like now. No, I mean, I'm not sure how comfortable with MetaMask Granny is, but look, if it's a game that's got mass appeal to a whole bunch of different demographics, people are going to find a way in as long as you can make that onboarding and gameplay experience solid. And look, I'm not like the most common player as far as like these quick casual mobile games that Zynga's best known for,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a market for them. And I think for maybe those of us that are more traditional hardcore gamers, mobile isn't real gaming and whatever, like if you're looking for entertainment and all you've got is 15 minutes, you're not going to be able to come in and jump into BG3 or D4. Like, sorry, it's not happening. But if you're going to be playing anyways, why not play in Web3? I mean, that's sort of my mantra at the moment, is as long as you've got, a reasonable economic structure. And I haven't seen enough yet from Sugartown to really get comfortable with that. But assuming they're putting something in place, it's just good for the space, right? You're getting more eyeballs on the concept, introducing it, and over time, just like ETH Lizards, Web3 is just slowly kind of Trojan horsing their way into every aspect of gaming, and then eventually ownership becomes the de facto mode of operations for these studios.
Mm-hmm. I actually said it in a space yesterday with Oldor and Graslow and them. I think it's a big name, but I don't foresee this necessarily being a big game. There will 100% be an audience for it. I just don't think I'm part of that audience. I've kind of grown past that type of game. I am hoping to be pleasantly surprised, and maybe they give me something that I can sit here and play at work and enjoy. Because I've started finding browser games that kind of fit that mold, right? I recently came across one that reminds me of like the OG. I don't know if you guys remember. I think it was called Adventure Quest, where it's basically like D&D in the browser, and it's very simplistic. Like you just click and click and click, and you kind of get presented small tidbits of stories, and you fight just by clicking and rolling dice, blah blah blah. And I'm been pleasantly surprised. I've eaten crow on plenty of games in this space before. Like, oh no, I don't think this is going to be a big deal, and then it turns out to be a really pleasant experience. So I think you're both right. I think there's definitely going to be an audience for it. It's just me personally, whether or not I will participate will depend heavily on the gameplay, more so than like the accessibility, in my opinion.
Yeah, that was the only thing I wanted to point out was like, have we seen gameplay yet? I feel like we've seen very good cinematics and storytelling, but I don't feel like I've seen
What,
gameplay.
the trailer's not the gaming experience? What? No.
Look, they have.
Well, hey, that's
art is
okay.
good.
Like, I'm not saying that's wrong, but like,
Yeah.
I haven't seen it, and I'm
Mhm.
interested because, like, in my mind, if they're saying that it's like Mafia Wars and everything, then that was so long ago.
Mhm.
That better be like 100 times deeper and complex and all of this. I hope it's literally not like, oh, hey, we're going back in time. Remember when you used to click and wait? Let's do that.
Nah, I saw the art. At least to me, the art was really appealing. I did enjoy what I saw, but like Dub's saying, gameplay. I need to see what we're working with here. If it's just another one of those idle base builders where I gotta wait 6 hours for an upgrade, I'm probably gonna fall out of it quick. I'm a sucker for those games. Don't get me wrong. The initial investment, like the dopamine hits, are there, but once I start having to wait and basically put the game down to make any progress, you lose me. So.
Yeah, and we got to call a spade with Zynga too. I mean, we know what company they are, how they act. I mean, I drive by their offices in SF, and it's just the fanciest looking like gaming studio office in SF. They're here to spend money and look good, and then get business revenue from that, right? So it's interesting.
Well, like Annie said, it's good for the space. Big name.
Yeah.
Just saying. Which, speaking of big names, the second one kind of ties into that. We got Square Enix with Symbiogenesis officially starting to kind of ramp up their marketing a little bit. I talked about them on Twitter last year. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the project, but it's not a traditional game experience by any means. I'm not sure. Are either of you familiar with it or looked into it at all?
Yeah, super familiar. I when you guys started saying like, oh, they're back or whatever, and things are ramping, I didn't even watch it. Like, I assume it's the same thing, but like, I'm interested to hear like what is new or has been revealed.
What about you, Annie? Are you familiar with it at all?
Yeah, a little bit. So as I understand, it's more. I would say like mission and lore kind of basis than like a traditional game that Square Enix would put out. So I'm the same as Dub here. I haven't heard anything lately. So if they've got some info that's been leaked or content, I'd be keen to hear about where they're going.
So IC put out a video today that kind of goes over it a little bit more than I'm familiar with. I did watch his video, and he said the phrase that I think is going to stick with it. It's an experience. What was it? Not experimental, but experiential. Yeah, experiential art. And it's going to have, you know, this campaign and this story. They're going to have a narrative that you can play apparently completely for free. You can experience it all for free. But if you want more, then you have to start buying and collecting the characters. And it's kind of like a community social, almost like a social experiment in a sense, because you don't have to buy all the characters to get that additional story. You can actually work with the community, find people who own characters that you don't, and they can give you like a summary or whatever. And eventually the story is going to be put in the community's hands. They're doing kind of like a series release. So think like Life is Strange, how they release episodes. It's going to be kind of following that format where each season the story is going to progress, and how it progresses will eventually be put in the community's hands. There are going to be decisions, characters are going to die.
Of course.
Game of Thrones.
Yeah. Man,
So-
that's cool. I like it.
It sounds dope. And the thing is, I've said this in a few of the interviews I've done with developers for our other Block Sauce segment. This is the Roundtable, but we also have a gaming segment where I get with developers and kind of discuss Web3 and their projects, and we showcase their gameplay. And I've said in a couple of those, like, I'm surprised we don't see Web3 taking a note from Disney Infinity or Skylanders, or there was a space one that followed the same format, but they had digital collectibles. You buy the base game, you can play and experience the entire main story with the base game, and all these collectibles that you purchase expand your experience. They give you access to new characters, new areas, new items, and they're almost like a mini DLC in a sense. And I think that would be a great use case for Web3. And this looks like the route that Square Enix is going to take with this. So I'm happy with it. I think this is going to be cool. As far as it being experiential art rather than an actual game, that might end up being where they lose me. Not like this is a personal thing. I love the gameplay. I like being able to interact. Like somebody mentioned BG3 recently. I think it was Annie, and I love Baldur's Gate 3. It's not my usual genre because it is turn-based, but the way that I get to engage with the story, I get to, you know, come up with my own ideas in the world. I see an oil barrel there, I hit it with the fireball, it explodes. That kind of gameplay is what really pulls me in, even when a game may not be for me. So with that missing, I feel like this is going to be something I'm going to try, especially as a free player. But I may not necessarily stick into or invest in. So
yeah, I'll add too, and I hate this because it sounds like I'm just shilling the project, but it's okay. You open the door, so
no, go for it.
I love the concept, and I think you exactly nailed the problem, which is if you have experiential artwork, but the experience isn't immersive enough, it's not going to be something that people are willing to engage with and pay for. That's where Ethos is actually taking a little bit of a different track. And to your point, we did take some of this concept, and that's what we're building in with our first round of products here. So we've got first a mini game that's integrated with Illuvium, and we're taking our experiential activities from a lore, from an artwork, from a community participation standpoint, and we're integrating that within the main games of our partners. And so the idea, go in and play Illuvium, play the game that you want to play. And while you're doing that, you're getting the side experience with ETH Lizards, integrating with our community, our lore, our IP, and branding, because we're so tightly linked with Illuvium. We're going to do the same over the next 2-3 years with a handful of other projects of whom I can't release the information. Sorry, I can't give all of the output today. But we're going to be doing the same with some of our other partner projects going forward, with the idea that We just need to find good projects and good games that you want to engage with anyways. And then we can build these more gamified, interesting experiences on top of that. And that's what we believe is going to be a game changer compared to what traditional Web 2 studios could do in this sector.
Yep. Totally love that. To piggyback, I've been doing the same thing on Soulbound side with our game partners and building like kind of like Hogwarts sorting hat kind of experiences to help gamers like identify who they want to be in the game and then kind of like go on and go for. So like I love seeing these like component game experiences that would normally just be like a website or something like the Blitz app, right? But instead it's like actually in the game and like a component of it, which is unique with the Web3 space.
Annie, it kind of sounds like you guys are working on my vision of interoperability. And I'm going to sound like a broken record. If you've seen me say this before, I'm sorry, but I can't preach this enough. Interoperability isn't me having a World of Warcraft dragon mount and being able to fly it in Grand Theft Auto. It's the Grand Theft Auto being able to look at the blockchain, recognize that I own a dragon mount in World of Warcraft, and with that information, they can incentivize me into their ecosystem by offering me a dragon themed like car skin, right? So it's not necessarily pulling full assets across. It's something to share your economy and ecosystem with other games. And it sounds like that's kind of the direction you guys are taking. Is that accurate?
It is, yeah. So I'm on record as saying that I don't believe that gamers want interconnected assets. They want interconnected experiences. As a gamer, what I want is when I go into my virtual world, whatever that is, pick your genre, FPS, RTS game, an MMO, hell, Candy Crush, okay? But when I'm going there, I want to leave the real world behind. I want to engage with my friends, family, whoever I'm playing with in my community. And I want that experience to be so immersive that I forget where I am. And when I move from a particular title, I move to another one, I want to feel like that's a connected experience. And I'm in a virtual setting across the board. And I don't care, exactly to your point, if my gun from Fortnite works in World of Warcraft. What I want is to feel like my virtual living is interconnected, and that's our belief, right? And the way that we think that's going to materialize first is in very targeted ways within an individual community. And for us, it's building out the ETH Lizards IP, brand, lore, art in a way that, because we can integrate with a host of these top tier studios because of our partnerships with them, you can go play Illuvium and then you can jump over here. And these are not official partners, but if you could just go through the sector, you want to go jump into Metalcore, we just talked about, go into Shrapnel, come over here to Dimensionals and to Wildcard and to Azra, and like, as you jump across these different studios over the course of the next 2, 3, 5 years as a gamer, you're always experiencing it through the lens of ETH Lizards. And you have this compelling single narrative and story arc, and you've got the same community that you're experiencing this with as you move across your gaming experience. So we're focusing more on, let's say, the hardcore gamers in these genres that I'm mentioning. But I believe that over time, you're going to see more API structures and standards in terms of the tech that will allow these studios to basically plug into something that's more like a metaverse concept when we talk about Ready Player One, that actually makes sense for a gamer. Because the asset conversion between studios, there's no financial incentive for them to do so, and there's no consistency of immersion when you do that. You need to have something that's the sort of cross thread that's running through each of these projects for that to work.
100%.
Yep, 100%. And they're starting to see it beyond just the assets too. Like on our side, we've been focused on the questing side and like showing that our quests are completed inside the games and things like this, and seeing that network starting to happen and everything is really cool.
Yeah, it's a great point, Dub. Your virtual identity, and that comes in terms of like achievements and titles and recognition and your guilds and all that. That matters a lot to people. And you know, we talk about like your physical attire that you wear when you're going out, you know, and like the shirt that you wear, the ball cap that links you with a particular sports team. you're always trying to signal like, who am I? Who's my clan, my tribe, my group? If you can do that virtually, so much the better. If you can do it while you're playing a game and as you move between, that's what people want. And identity is a key point of focus for gamers.
Also, if anybody watching is wondering why Annie's speaking as if he's like heading a project, it's because he's actually the CEO of Eth Lizards. So
Go figure. Here I was thinking you're some awesome just fan of it.
I didn't know who he was either. And like,
much respect, Annie. I love you.
Thanks, guys.
I got more info in the middle of the video, and I was like, oh wait, I didn't introduce him well enough. We're amongst a legend here.
Yeah, thanks for bringing me onto the Eth Lizards too. Absolutely loving the journey.
No, it's great, guys. Look, my title is CEO, but it's Chief Eth Lizards Officer, right? So we don't take ourselves too seriously. My profile picture includes a mullet on it because I say we're the Web3 gaming mullet, and we're building something really serious in the front end, but it should be a hell of a lot of fun in the back, and so that's what we're going for. So no worries, guys. We're all friends here.
We just became that much more best friends, man. That's great.
Oh man. Well, with that said and corrected. We also noticed, if anybody, again, if you're in the know, you probably have already seen this. Web3 gaming growth in Asia is apparently just taking off. To me, it makes sense. So for anybody that might not know my background, I actually lived in Japan for 2 years. And there's a culture difference over in Asia, you know, and I kind of mentioned it in Grazlo's space yesterday. So when I go to the US and we've got those little like kids machines where you put in a quarter and you turn it and you get a little ball that has like some cheap ring. There's no real value there. As a kid, you think it's awesome, but once you grow up, you start to look at it like, oh, this is a ripoff, right? In Japan, their little machines, you get like really cool toys. Like you can get little transformers, you can get plushies, like there's all kinds of neat little things that you get out of them. And even as an adult, they continue buying them, because to them, the value is still there for what you're spending on what you're getting. And I think that's why Web3 is taking off, is because to them, these gacha, like the loot boxes and stuff like that, have a much different sense of value than we see in the West. Would you guys agree, or what's your thoughts on that?
I 100% agree. Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me because I haven't spent time in Asia. But I have spent time in Europe and in France for an extended amount of time, and I saw the cultural differences there. And you nailed it with saying it's culture. It's they clearly are collecting and care more about collecting, and like actually not just the rarity or like something because it's shiny, but because it's cool to them and because it's their favorite story, or they're really into mechs, or they're really into witches, or whatever that may be. You know, they kind of take their thing and they go with it for longer than what I have seen myself do and what I've seen my friends do, which is you know, like we're more disposable with our collectibles and with what we do and everything.
Yeah, it's a good point. And Jigrin, I also spent 3 years living in Asia. I was in China for a few years, and I saw the same. I think it comes down a lot to what traits and characteristics have more scarcity in the culture that becomes more valuable. And so if you talk about like a play to win mechanic, if you come to the West, right, to the US, to Europe, to Australia, generally people are going to look down their nose at you if you say like, I bought this, this sword that was, cost me $1,000, and now I'm like the most legendary player in the game. Everyone looks at you and you're like, you're such a scrub. Like, what? Why can't you just get good at the game? Why do you have to pay money for it? That's not true in Asia, right? If you go and tell someone, look, like, I love this game and I spent $1,000 on it so that I could be good, like, people are going to respect that and say, like, you're putting your money where your mouth is. Like, that's not a negative, but it's a very different general approach. And obviously we're talking in generalities here, but in terms of that mindset difference, it's certainly the case. And you see this, even studios know this, the monetization practices that they approach when selling games into China or other Asian markets are very different. Oftentimes you get a lot more commonly pay to win, pay to progress mechanics in the Asian version of games than you will in more westernized versions. Is that wrong? No. I mean, you're really targeting, catering to your target audience.
Yep.
Generally, I think it makes more sense if you've got like a clear split and like one server it's this way, another one it's that way, so everyone's experience is the same. I think that's important. But the idea that you would cater for what people want, I don't see that as a negative. And I think that sort of mindset difference is why really Asia is probably more ripe as a region for Web3 gaming than a lot of the Western markets are going to be, at least initially. And I think in this case, you may see more traction in Korea, Japan, China, Southeast Asia before it begins maybe becoming more popular in the rest of the Western hemisphere.
Yeah, and I think a specific example to pay attention to right now and to try to prove this point is actually with Meiji, and what Sinjin's doing, because he has pivoted from being focused on the North American, European Web3 community that lives on Twitter now, and he's now going after Thailand and the Asian market. And today, like that's why I'm here, is because he's over there. So like I'm super interested in watching that closely, seeing how that goes. I talked to him last night. Like, he feels so confident that it's like, it's easy for me to grab 10 people and get their attention and retain them at a 90% rate compared to with what he's been seeing in the past, which is like way lower of a retention.
And see, me personally as a Westerner, I don't mind pay to win as long as you keep it out of competitive modes. If it's PvP or ranked or something like that, that's where I have a problem with it, because if somebody less skilled than me can win just by spending more money, I look, guys, I basically live paycheck to paycheck. I'm not spending to win in a game. So that tends to put me off from the game. But if it's PvE, like co-op stuff, like Genshin Impact comes to mind, for example, right? Everybody's working together, and there's a lot of characters I can't access unless I spend a lot of money. So if I group up with people and we're clearing content and we're downing bosses and we're having a good time, and they spent $1 million and I spent $2, I don't see an issue with it. They like the game, they support it, and because of the whales like them, I get to keep enjoying the game because the servers get to stay on. It's a win-win for everybody, right? But you'll see a lot of people, even in the West, complain about those types of systems. So many people were upset about the gachas, and I'm a sucker for gachas. Loot boxes, gachas, anything where I can get like exclusive, legendary, super mythic characters. That's why I'm in Web3. I started with a mint, and I'm rolling the dice, and I got a rare skin, and I was like, oh man, this is addictive. And now I've opened a bajillion loot boxes in Web3.
I literally remember you doing that yesterday.
Oh yeah, no. So STG football, I've got about 11 loot boxes that I'm gonna be opening this weekend, because
he was going nuts, dude. He was like, had to open one then and there. He was like, oh, we gotta at least crack one. Come on.
Yeah, I talked to their team. They were like, oh, we'll give you one to open now, because I wanted to save them for the stream. I was like, no, I want to use this for content, but I also want to open them. And so he's like, here, have one. So I opened one, and I was like, oh, now I want to open the rest.
Your hand's like shaking, like I can't, must close the window.
That's exactly what happened. I closed it, and I was like, nope, we'll wait. So,
it was so funny. I couldn't help him.
I just like getting rare and cool stuff. Like, I've got one of the Howler skins in EVIO, right? And when I run it, everybody's like, oh my God, like, sweet skin, I love it, because there's only 31 of them in the entire game. So you're only ever going to see 30, probably about 30 players with it at any given time. And that's what I like, is that feeling of like, I've got something super awesome that nobody else can get right now.
So that's the interesting part to me about this, the concept of metagaming, right? That's what I'm going to call it. So the whales, you talk about a whale who's coming in, pay to win. Like, I want to spend $10,000 to be better than this other person that spent $12,000 on a particular game. For the average person, like, those amounts of money just seem illogical. But B, the type of competition that they're engaging in is not the same type of competition as the person who's trying to get a headshot in in an FPS game, right? That we call it that infra game versus the meta game competition. So if any of you or in your audience have listened to Brooks Brown from NOR, they're really leaning into that structure where you've got a position for the meta gamers, which is the economic gameplay. Let them play in that space, but keep that content isolated from the infra game, which is the quick twitch reflexes and living in the moment. And like, I want to be here just for that short-term gameplay. Create a space for both groups to play in. And I think as long as you have this clear delineation, there's room for both. And Web3 actually caters better to both than Web2 does, as long as you have it clear which type of game that you're playing. That's the kicker, is that a lot of games don't recognize what they're actually building often until it's too late. And instead of potentially appealing for both groups, you get a product that's somewhere in the middle and is appealing to neither, because both feel like their experience is being cheapened by the other component being in place.
I challenge people with this because they're like, I would never spend that amount of money for a game. I'll tell you right now, the last 8 years or so, if you look at my Riot Games account, I've probably spent almost 2,000. Actually, there's no probably. You can actually look up the number. And the last time I checked, it was around 1,750, and I've spent more since then on League of Legends, a completely free-to-play game, and I've spent almost $2,000 on it. Now, granted, that's the course over a few years, but let's look at retro games as an example, right? Would you go pay $2,000 for a PlayStation 1 game? Most people are going to say no, but a collector would probably drop that no problem. They'd just be like, yep, that's the value. And I say that because it's on sale. I just looked it up. It is on sale, factory sealed, black label for $2,000. So people are clearly buying them. And I go to a retro game store here locally, and like even non-sealed games, I'm spending $200 to $300 just because that value, that collector value or nostalgia or whatever. And that's kind of what we're starting to see with the digital scarcity, is you have people that want this and they are willing to spend that much money for what they want. If it wasn't selling, people would be dropping prices. So clearly the markets are moving enough that people are buying at these prices. Now, is it going to stay that way? If we want mass adoption, I'm going to say no, just because who's going to spend $200 to buy a skin? Like, as an average gamer, most people aren't. Let's be honest. But if you can find a way to make it to where you have like sets of skins, like you have a collector's collection versus the everyday Joe collection that sells for like $5 to $15, then you're going to start to see people participating in both markets. I think that's where we're kind of falling short right now, is we're catering to the big spenders and the ones that want to buy everything versus the ones that just want something that looks cool at an affordable price point.
Yeah, I think that's right. You're gonna have a shift as these early adopters, who in most cases, just like you said, Jinkern, are focused on like high dollar purchases. When you begin to get enough utility and enough structures in place to where lower end collections have meaning, that's when you're going to begin to see more volume of users and gamers come into the sector, right? But there hasn't till now been enough time, in my opinion, for these projects to really build out meaningful content, whether we're talking about gaming or not, right? It can be in music or art or community, whatever sector of NFTs you want to think about. There needs to be enough time for that development to occur. And then I think you're going to have a chance of getting more mainstream adoption, because you're right, people love collecting. And someone that will look you in the eye and say, you are nuts to spend $1,700 on a League of Legends skin, go into their garage. They're going to have 5,000 wrenches in their garage. And like, how could you possibly use all those wrenches? Well, I don't. In the same way that you don't use every one of those skins, and you're not going to see all of them maybe ever, right? Some of the skins you may buy and you've never ever seen them in game, but you know what? You wanted to collect it. There's nothing wrong with that for wrenches. My wife loves chickens. And I've come to learn that there is a rarity tier difference in the chickens that you have. You get a black copper Maran. These chickens are like 30x the price of another one. They don't produce any different eggs. Eggs are the same. They have a better color, and their eggs have better colors. People want them. They will pay a premium. Humans are collectors. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. So it's going to be true for virtual goods as well as physical goods.
Dogs. You mentioned that, and I think dog breeds. Purebred, you're going to pay a lot more than just buying from your friend next door who probably has, it's not a derogatory term, I hope, a mutt, right? Or mixed breed, I guess, might be politically correct. I don't know. I don't want to offend the dogs. So, yeah, I agree with you 110%. That was a great point with the chickens. I didn't even know that about chickens, to be honest.
Yeah, I didn't either. But the closer you get, you find out there's collectors everywhere.
Well, our final topic is 90% subsidized commercial licenses for any AI and Web3 startup that decides to build out of Dubai. So Dubai is always kind of trying to be a tech hub, and now it seems like they're thinking ahead of the game and trying to encourage more of the Web3 folks to start building out of there. I think that's a good thing. Not financial advice, but I think that's a bull signal.
For sure. I mean, it's not the first time I've heard of this either. I've seen these offers. They've been around for about, I want to say 3 to 6 months now. Is where I've seen like this trend happening. For myself, I'd be down. I'd go check out a new country, see what it's like, culture, and all of that. I think if you're considering it, I'd say go live your life. Travel while you can. Take advantage of situations like this, opportunities like this. You'll never know like what you can do in a year. Truly.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely agree that Dubai has certainly positioned themselves over the last 2-3 years as a hub that really wants to be positioned well for Web3. Their VARA, so anyone that's in the like regulatory and compliance space, their VARA framework is, I would say, in my opinion, the most robust structure that exists in the world today. Now, it's still very early, and very few projects have been able to get like fully through the process of registration and incorporation and so on in the country. But they're doing more than just even throwing tax breaks and financial incentives. They're also trying to throw clarity into the market to say, if you come here, this is our position on how you might be running your project from a Web3 standpoint. Clearly, they're also trying to take the same approach with AI. But in general, I think you're going to see more as a location and some of the regions in the world start to take that same track, as we've seen with VARA and Dubai and others. It basically creates almost a race to the bottom or an arms race where, as talent starts leaving other countries to go there, eventually there becomes enough of an incentive to say, no, we want to track that back. And some countries that are lagging behind, the US and others, are going to have no choice but to enter the fray. We saw this. The US has not always been a leader in terms of tech. Often they've waited to see if someone else actually really adopts it. And when they've seen financial value, then they turn around and say, oh, actually, we think this is a great idea now. Like, come on over here. We're throwing the floodgates open, and come house your new organization in the U.S. I think you're going to see more of that here over the next 5 years than people would anticipate.
I would have to agree with that, and we've already seen that happen. I think it was a year or two ago. I forgot when it happened exactly, but China had a big crackdown on blockchain mining organizations. Because of the energy usage that was coming through, and they started restricting them and limiting them. And those companies actually ended up moving to the U.S. Now, this was pre like SEC crackdown and let's regulate everything situation. So I'm not sure this is still applicable today, but it proves the point that if you start to regulate too much and you restrict them too far, they're going to go somewhere where they're incentivized to be there. And those cities that they move to have renewable energy sources. They're giving them tax breaks on their operations, and they literally encourage them to be there, even knowing their energy use situation. So I think you're right, and you nailed it on the head 100%.
Yeah, so I think the big question is going to be who else emerges in the sector, right? As different regions or different countries. I mean, certainly with MiCA, the EU and the UK also, they've got a similar structure as well. They're working to try and be leaders as well in the space. It's a challenge though as a builder, and certainly I know we've looked at this a lot from an ETH Lizard standpoint, and pretty much every founder I talk to, I'm friends with dozens of them. They're all trying to figure out like what's the right structure, what's the right framework, how can we be compliant, and it's such a quick moving space that 3 months ago the answers were very different than they will be now. It makes it really difficult to try and plan long term from a framework and an organizational standpoint. But eventually, each organization is going to hit a point where they have to make a call and say, okay, we're going to incorporate here. We're going to set up our structure in such and such a way and go forward. It would be nice to be 5 years down the road and know which of those frameworks are going to actually win in the end. But for now, I have to say always kudos to any of the founders and the leaders of these organizations that are taking the risk. They're trying to build something meaningful and do so in the right way. We need to be supporting them and really focusing our attention on making that as easy as possible for them to, when they're trying to do the right thing, do so. And I think there's plenty of work that our regulators could be doing, enforcing actions against organizations and founders that are not doing things the right way. That really needs to be more of the focus.
I agree 100%. So we are at the top of the hour. I don't want to keep you guys around longer than you may be afforded. Do you have any final thoughts that you would like to provide?
It's just exciting times, man. I don't think we're at that like little bit of the ends of us saying we're early, and that feels cool. Feels cool to me. I mean, we've known about all these big names having plans entering the space. It's great to see them making it public. It's great to see countries making policies, combating each other, trying to be leaders in this space. I hope it's great signs all around, So it's a pleasure to have so many freaking games to play right now, and solid games and all of the things. I'm just my cup's full.
I'll echo that, Dub. I think exactly to your point, if you're outside of the sector, you probably think that crypto and Web3 gaming is at the beginning of the end. If you're here, you recognize that we're just at the end of the beginning, and we're just finishing the prologue chapters of the book. So if you're here and listening to this cast, probably you're earlier than 99.5% of people in the world in understanding that things are not ideal from a sentiment standpoint in the market today, but the amount of building and the amount of good content, great games that are being developed is unparalleled in history. And I firmly believe that you're going to see a bigger change over the next 10 years with Web3 integration than we saw with mobile and consoles and all of these other sea changes in the industry, because this doesn't just affect distribution channels. It doesn't just affect platforms. It affects the entire monetization structure that underpins gaming in a way that really hasn't happened since we moved away from arcades into individually owned devices. And so I think it's going to be wild. Certainly, if you're here, hopefully you're a gamer, and you're going to find some really good content. So I'll shill Dub. He's a legend. One of the like, if you want to find someone who's played every game, knows what's going on, come watch this man play, and come join us this weekend. Again, we'll hit the Metalcore Guild War again. Like, come on and play with us. We'd love to have you all with ETH Lizards. And there's going to be dozens more great games coming over the next decade that you're going to want to be a part of.
Oh man, can't thank you enough. Like, it's humbling. Like, it's cool. Coming in day out in this space, it makes it worth it. Like, meeting guys like you and organizations like you, and just the support you give. Like, truly appreciate it.
It's crazy, like seeing where we were a year and a half ago when I first entered Web3 to where we are today. I've already seen so many changes. The feedback from gamers like myself and Dub has, I feel like it's had an impact. I really feel like people are listening. I don't get that in Web2. I can't just go to Tim Sweeney's inbox and be like, hey, I think Fortnite would benefit from this, right? Or Bobby over there at Activision, I can't tell him, hey, Call of Duty sucks, fix it. I have that luxury over here, and thankfully, most of the projects that we have worked with have been really receptive to even the criticism, because that's how they're going to get better. If you don't listen to the players and they're not happy with your game, well, what players are you going to have when you put something out nobody likes? So I'm really glad. Thank you, Annie, again for joining us today. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to hang out and talk with us. We definitely got to have you around more. Like, if this is something that you had fun with, I would love to bring you on occasion. I would like to see more founders get involved, like just discussions between gamers and founders, like in the public eye, because we do talk a lot behind closed doors, but there's a lot of people out here that think we're just paid shills, when realistically we're like, no, we're just trying to help games like everybody else. You know, we want to see them succeed, and sometimes we got to do stuff in public more so than just in the DMs or in Discord, I feel like. But that's my personal opinion.
100%.
So that's gonna be a wrap for us today, folks. This was another great episode of the Block Sauce. I just can't thank Annie enough for taking time. Again, this was a last minute, Phil. Like, we were scrambling behind the scenes, like, oh man, who can we get in here? And like, thank you again. Big shout out. If you guys,
it was my pleasure, guys. Yeah.
If you guys aren't following them, what's your Twitter handle? I know ETH Lizards. I know their Twitter.
Yeah, just Animositas1. If you get onto ETH Lizard's Twitter, you'll probably find me linked on there in a number of places. So yeah, just come follow ETH Lizards and you'll find me.
Okay, now that I know your full handle, we have met before. Gamified Wolves DAO. Spaces.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I just always called you Animositas.
Yeah, I was like, Annie, who's Annie? But now the full name comes into effect. I'm like, oh, I know you.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you again, guys. Everybody who joined us, thank you again, Dub and Annie. Appreciate you guys. We couldn't have done it without all of our viewers and supporters, because you guys fuel us to continue doing this day in and day out. We're all out here building together. Remember, the sauce never stops flowing. Stay connected with all of us on social medias. You got Dub, Jin Kieran. Mine's Jin Kieran Gaming because somebody took my handle. And don't forget to follow the Block Sauce account. We have a new account. We got ReinFT Labs as the parent company. We got the media channel, which is Block Sauce with a 3 at the end instead of an E. So, Rod, make sure you put the links down below. That's going to be it for today. Join us next time for another thrilling episode of the Block Sauce, where we'll keep the gaming flame alive and the discussion sizzling. Next week's show is to be determined. I will be at Rare Evo. Assuming the Wi-Fi holds up, we will proceed. However, my experience at ETH Denver was less than pleasant for trying to run any web shows, so we'll take that one by ear. So keep an eye on the Twitter. Stay saucy and keep gaming in the exciting realm of Web3. Thank you guys, and have a good one.